Damn, son, where'd you find this? It's King Majora at it again, my boys and gal pals. Take it away, nigga. What's up, people? It's King Majora here. Look, so I've been doing a lot of reflecting, and I feel that I just need to discuss this because I think that it's paramount that you understand. I still hear it with every content creator that I come across who speaks about, typically any kind of controversial issue. And, I'm a fan of LOLcows. I have a different a different take on LOLcows and like Chris Chan, Cyrax. I'm not saying that these people deserve or should not deserve what happens to them. But what I will say is they live fascinating lives. And, despite the weird, outlandish, ridiculed life that, for example, Chris Chan has, he somehow, some way, comes out to where he got people that is such a fan of his life to the point that the intrigue pays for him to get thousands of dollars to just waste on Legos. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I know the public perception is bad for Chris Chan. He fucked his mom and everything else. He may be ridiculed on social media, but the nigga got it made for his own life. You understand? Like his own autistic life. That son of a bitch got it made. He got his own Legos. He sells his own goofy little Chris Chan Sonichu shit, and I'm a big fan of him. And the mere fact that if I had the money, as fucked up as it is, I would enable him just to see more Chris Chan A Comprehensive History. And I know I'm not alone. And this is the same thing with Cyrax, the Nova dude, and all the other weirdos. The mere fact that these people, these midwits, and this is the greater discussion that I'm going to be talking about. These midwit people who look upon LOLcows, and I think what it is they're normal ass people with no excuse of being like a LOLcow, and in their own lives they find a lack of self-worth, and then they pick on a LOLcow not to just experience it for the goofy, eccentric outcast it is, but they do this weird, and I'm not saying it's intentionally malevolent and sinister, but they'll do this thing where they'll compare themselves and their intellect to Chris Chan or Cyrax or anybody else, but the delivery of how they present themselves is very reminiscent of the same type of snide that comes from, the left-wing centric, atheist skeptic people. I know that sounds like a logical leap to make, but what I'm saying is, for the more center right-leaning populace that seems to be the Americans and furthermore other civilizations, they tend to have some sort of tinge of, despite what the radicals and left persuasions do to people, there, at least on the internet, is a vein of centrist, right-leaning, thought within the content creator sphere. And it produces these midwits, and it goes into my greater discussion about the mainstream media. Let's talk about what exactly is the mainstream media. Can you actually point to me? Now, most people would say, well, King Majora is obviously CNN. It's obviously Fox News, Vice, the New York Times, these big institutions, MSNBC, obviously that's the mainstream media. We know who that is, but it's like, really think about it. Do you yourself partake in watching them? Do you really know what Sean Hannity be saying anymore? Like, have you if you're a younger, like a Zoomer audience, hell, even millennials, do you ever remember the last time you took, Don Lemon or Sean Hannity for either persuasion seriously? Like, do you actually get your news from watching the television syndicated legacy media? Highly likelihood, if you may watch a clip, but your own opinion of it is it's not trustworthy because it's the mainstream media. And you know what? That is absolutely right to have that sort of gumption towards them. But what I will say is this. simply because of the technological age and how mankind and normies alike of all walks of life have moved and migrated their very online social, they moved online with their social presence, the monetization, the pop stars, the fame, everything that goes along with the ecosystem of the internet that basically mankind's normie people basically took and made their own and after the 2010s, and people still don't have that strong, people realistically, you don't have kids that by majority will get on a computer and toy around. Like I was staying at my mom's for a little bit, and my little brother would play like Steam on my computer, my home computer, but I always encouraged him to actually get on the computer and learn it and study and just have fun. Like when I was a kid, like I said, I was eccentric. I was of more higher intelligence, and I'm not calling myself a genius, but I'm using at like 6 years old, I'm on Newgrounds Funny Junk E-Bombs World, and using like the spyware Bonsai Buddy and text-to-speech, Microsoft Sam, and I'm developing an early, mindset to the edgy internet humor that eventually, like I always say, it birthed people like the Smiling Friend, Psyche Pebbles, Oni Plays, the people who came from that generation of art. And it caused this convergence with normies. And, well, basically, because normies are on the internet, and if you want to hear my diatribe on all of these other side tangents, be sure to check me out and be sure to like and subscribe wherever you're at. But basically, we take what content creators say as gold as so long as we like them. And I've realized this is greater about society. It's like, my name is King Majora, right? The X in the King part, it establishes a form of rap. Now, I've admitted that mine is it's comedy. It's intentionally Skeltonic's poetry. It's not meant to be taken as if I spent time to craft a song for you to bump every day. They are intentionally made to make you think or laugh. Or if they're not, the ethos and spirit, if there is to bump, is still of that ironic tinge. Because I only spend about 30 minutes when I write a song or go off the dome anyway. It's about the inspirational feeling that I have combined with the not so popular mainstream, I don't do that style of marketing, campaign. Skeltonics is like my rhyme scheme goes into like the early 2000s, late 90s. But what I'm saying is, even within the sphere of music, I have people who will basically say, I suck. And they don't understand the context of my rapping. And basically, I've learned that it doesn't matter if you're good or bad. Even, like, take Eminem. He tells people in his new rhymes, he's like, everybody said I sucked. He said that from the beginning. Everybody used to say I sucked until I got famous. And I really do feel that there's some sort of energetic exchange and some sort of psychological operation that goes into whether you like someone, and that's Eminem included. And it made me think of my greater point about the media. It made me think of my greater point about what we determine to be mainstream media. And I've determined that it is the popular content creators of today. And it's like, well, duh, but it's like, no, do you really understand what I'm saying? And by the nature of that, you should treat every content creator with the same amount of suspect and all of the ways you criticize. You should really be looking at it even at your own, favorite content creator. Even if you're not political, it should be like, well, I'm watching basically Tucker Carlson of whatever the hell I watch on the level of celebrity fame I watch. Rather it be, Candace Owens, the Rubin Report, or, as weird as that may sound, Ben Shapiro, one of the, Young Turks, the Peckman or whatever the hell his name is, David Peckman, Alex Jones, whatever flavor you have, you need to understand that at this point in the ball game, with all of the things I've mentioned thus far, we are in a time where they are the mainstream media, and you should always understand. For example, I brought up Brittany Venti, for example, before, because, and I'm not saying this to actually disrespect her or imply the nature of having a handler is even wrong, but you must understand that by the nature of some of these people openly even advertising their handler on their own social media handles, you know, Brittany Benty going back to the blood sports, the Andy Worski and all those people, you know, that age, it's like we've forgotten all about them, but these people have shaped the very nature of the youth, myself included. You know, I'm not a youth anymore. I'm 30 years old now. I was born in 95. I was born, my birthday this year is November 13th, and I'm going to be born, my birthday's on the end of the world. Like, you know, basically they say it's the end of the world, and I think that's funny. But, you know, basically, you know, I'm Unc, but I was still shaped by the productions of the basically late 2010s as I was an older teen, expressed through the content creators on early success YouTube. And I really started to reflect on what made me even consider my own preferences has been shaped by these content creators we blindly absorb. It's like the whole notion of making someone laugh to get under their subconscious defenses. It's like we become accepting of more than just what for example, video or a podcast will say. We start to incorporate the identity of everything said within our content creators by our own uncontrollable biases to basically be a fan or worship in some light or severe extent people within celebrity media. And that venue is now the mainstream social media. It's YouTube, it's Instagram, it's Lemonade or whatever the hell it's called. It's TikTok, it's X. It's no longer the town square, and it's no longer basically a social club gathering or the fraternity because you basically got together or you saw something on the legacy media. It's no longer this. And you need to understand the level of basically you got to put yourself in the shoes of these people and what they are willing to do in the arena that is actually present within media, politics, and, basically propaganda. The Candace Owens, the Charlie Kirks, the Tucker Carlsons, the Jake Shields, and all these other people who basically have some opinion to say on the internet. Not even mentioning the Alexander Dugin aspects of just random people being paid for by these ultra-nationalists in Soviet Union and, basically, other, adjacent, Heritage Foundation centric types who want to fund this weird shift within radical Abrahamism where they basically want to have everyone hating on the Jews because this certain flavor of Messianic Jews needs it to happen to fulfill their prophecies, and these people just so happen to have high stakes holdings in reality banking and political and legal structures. That's just the nature of that beast. You don't have to even blanket term all Jews. You don't have to hate the Jews like the Jews, but that's a documented fact, and we don't have to really get into the JQ aspects. But you understand what I'm saying. Even with that aspect, the paying for and having these weird, reverse psychology, weird narratives. And, these people, like the people who studied in the Brain Initiative, they study you. They study every type of psychology related to the mind. Some of these people, basically think you want to have sex with your mother and kill your father. It's some weird shit. And they think they know everything. I love my sister, but at the end of the day, she went to college to be a psychologist, and she went through this whole phase of basically armchair diagnosing people. It's just the nature of that beast as well. That happens with anybody who goes on these particular paths, goes to college, etc. But it doesn't change the fact that what I'm trying to say is you really should consider what you actually in your mind think of when somebody says mainstream media. Because if you're intellectually honest and really think about it, that is no longer in your mind. Should it be a picture of the logo of Fox News, or think of Fox News or CNN or, the Business Times or whatever the scientific journals of today have to say, or Military Times, because this has moved to the content creator, the celebrity influencer on these social media sites, and it's built and designed around very short form content and the doom scrolling nature of the terminally online class. And at this point, society, basically all of the children are growing up with tech in their hands. When I was a kid, it was get on the computer, get on dial-up, and eventually, as I was getting a little bit older, broadband, before there was even Wi-Fi. And now you got an iPad, and even though it's not really incentivized by culture to go anywhere but the main 20 websites that we go to, the other websites are still there. and exploring through apps is still there. But because of this, there's so much that goes into what exactly you believe at any given time. You got to talk about subliminals and the people in Hollywood, not even talking about when I bring up the Smith-Mundt Act, the revisions to it, the Obama-era executive orders that allowed them to instill basically propaganda and hard-to-digest truths in fiction. But, we're talking about other controversial topics, subliminal messaging that's entirely explicit and sexual, and you can't even realize it or register it from your mind because basically you're looking at it from an upside down perspective, or some kind of weird Disney Illustrator shit where there's a penis in there or something. It don't have to imply a satanic elite, although I think there are elements of that. It just simply has to be that there are perverts who want to just put that in a children's show for a fucking laugh. It doesn't even imply pedophilia. But do you see what I'm saying? So every little bit of detail of what goes into what you consume, and your mind is completely open to it. You're doom scrolling, you're searching the web, you're bored, your dopamine receptors are fried, and you're already, basically by the algorithm itself, you are catered to in an echo chamber of like-minded people who basically go to the same content creators if they follow the same patterns of likes and views on social medias like YouTube or X. It's like I've actually tested this. I'll create a new account, like and watch a few things, and then watch the same usual suspects appear with the same usual arguments, and it could be for the JQ on X or UFOs, but you'll end up getting the same group of people, no matter what they claim to be, outsider, privileged, or otherwise. They will always have the same group of people, and they don't even have to be connected, but that is the very nature of how we consume anything really on this age. You don't hear too many people saying, let's go get a fucking newspaper. You know what I mean? You don't see that. You get your shit online, and usually it's from a decentralized, random content creator that probably don't even crack 100,000 views or subscribers. Let's be honest here. Everything we consume is so decentralized, which is by design, meaning we don't get the same information and propagandization from people because we get the algorithm-based cycle of whatever we choose to engage with, and there's not enough unison and monolith feelings within people. They just feel dopamine fried. They feel like they can't do anything in life. They feel that they're trapped, and that's so that they can't unify under a single goal because they're so decentralized in this network ecosystem of whatever content creator comes up, because the AI algorithm dictated what is best to keep you on the platform. People like, Zuckerberg have even admitted, I like Facebook and Meta, but I can handle it responsibly. I understand what it really is. I can engage with any of these social medias healthy. I don't have to completely ban myself from them, or, I don't have to completely engross myself with them. I watch YouTube, I watch videos like anybody from any other generation who watches TV. But the bad mental health aspects, for example, that were found by Meta, by self-admission, by watchdogs, basically, all of what I'm trying to say is to not to try to get into the nitty-gritty nuances. I want to make my greater point known as we are getting into basically almost 20 minutes in. I'm going to try to wrap this up. So, basically it's this. I hope I presented enough to you this so far with enough arguments and philosophical questioning so that you could actually say, okay, every day I'm getting something socially engineered at me. The algorithm is basically performing nonstop psychological operations on me with no strict intent other than to keep me on the platform and not make too much of a ruckus for them or the elites, but to merely complain and get echo chambered into an algorithm hellhole. And your dopamine just remains fried and there's nothing you can do because these elites have basically gotten brazen. Rather they be Jewish, Europhile, or otherwise, and they are very brazen, and they are basically telling you do something about it. And you know what? They're right. I'm not going to try to make a difference like I did. I basically made an ass of myself, but I made myself a local legend. I made a parody Twitter, and I tried to be the content creator that swayed opinions with intentionally out there and more, risky freedom of speech. It was still in good fun. It was deliberately hate-filled, but in such a non-serious manner that it was a cartoon villain that, for various reasons, Homeland Security came to my door and I socked him in the face. Made me a local legend. And, long story short, basically, I tried to take the path of comedian making an example just because I've always seen the level of manipulation. And, it's been over a decade. Now I'm 30 years old. I've spent a life of researching this stuff, reading books, watching documentaries. And, I've really discovered just how deep this is. And people are not really prepared to go about their real lives without being socially engineered. There's no autonomy and independence in how most people conduct themselves, and I feel so bad for people, incels and women. I can look at both of their sides and see both sides' agreement are just miserable for their various reasons towards the opposite gender. But that's what I mean. We're all basically in our own decentralized ecosystems. The mainstream media itself has evolved to the content creators who get picked up by the algorithm that of any given person that gets tweaked and refined, and you find yourself in an ecosystem with like minds based on search results to keep you on the page or website, the service. The advertisers are pleased. So you get socially engineered, and your mind can't fully consciously register the level of psyop that's getting to you by anybody in particular, including myself, if you really think about it. Just to question it, because the mainstream media, the deceptive nature, the baggage of calling it even the mainstream media and everything with it, you see the same thing, but more WWE-ified within the Nick Fuentes camp and all the beefs with Candace Owens or No More News Adam Green or something. Like, all of these people who make a smaller couple 100,000 presence somehow, some way, always are in this tight-knit, weird WWE scandal with other content creators, calling each other out, calling each other feds, calling each other this and that, and there's no real substance to it other than for itself. And like Peter Griffin says, I'm bringing it up again like I've done so far in like 3 or 4 videos, how he saw The Godfather. Their self-importance insist upon itself. They take themselves way too seriously, and by proxy, we take them too seriously. We take content creators and their opinions way too seriously. And I think that this goes into this whole idea, and I really thought about it, y'all. I really thought about it. We want to believe, myself included, if we ridicule someone or expose them, that our judgment of our very nature of knowing of their actions and it being exposed to a wider audience and condemned, we want to believe that's our form of justice in this world through social media. But then I really thought about it. All you gotta do is get off the web. You don't think, like, for example, you could have somebody whose life is completely ruined by sexual assault allegations or grooming even a minor, because you see these stories in real life. They just get off the internet and meet somebody else. It's like the internet's not real. It's just a question. Mickey Mouse Predator from the Catcher Predator. Dude got a wife after that. So don't tell me even in those are some of the worst case scenarios, children. And they still live normal lives. This happens with everybody, basically, that we find on the internet, that these LOLcows, like, basically these people who dedicate their whole content creation, having their goofy little fucking 2D little avatar that does the same little, sarcastic infuriating looking cringy face expressions and weird ways that they shape the character, like he's thinking and he's the thinker and he's intellectual, or questioning the ludicrous nature of what they're hearing. It's so cliche and happens, and it's all basically at this level, and AI could do it. We have developed in our own ways as humans to adapt the language of content creators based on content creators and aspirations to be famous as content creators. We have moved on to the phase where no longer is it, I want to be a famous rock star, movie star. It's, I want to be the next 15 minutes of fame on TikTok. And that is basically a manifestation of the popularity of YouTube and Vine and that era when normies really got involved with the internet. Now everyone wants to be a Facebook star. Everyone wants to be an X star, a TikTok star, and everyone from their particular ecosystems want to talk trash about the other social media and say, I only do this social media. All other social media is bad. And we virtue signal based upon basically the emotions, the vocabulary, and the overall mindset of the content creators we absorb every day. It's no different than back in like the 80s and before, taking Walter Cronkite seriously, or whoever was on CNN or Fox News. You're basically treating them with the same level of integrity. And you know what? Don't even, if you're intellectually honest, look in the mirror. Do you yourself, if you're watching me, do the same thing? Do you give these content creators more excuse to be greater than they realistically are? And I'm not saying that to trash anybody who succeeds as a content creator. You're watching me, for example. But a lot of these people take themselves way seriously, too seriously, or they social engineer in their very nature of their, back to the whole argument of LOLcows, LOLcows. These people who ridicule people in society because they're basically these LOLcow archivists utilize low-hanging fruit like that, and then they'll tie some other social outcast who may have a valid point, but you're framed in the ridicule of the internet. This whole weird, edgy meme that the internet doesn't forget. I feel you. Everybody who's ever said that, I'm not even trying to take that from you. But you gotta think about it. When Jeff Stacy, the Mickey Mouse Predator from To Catch a Predator, can get a wife and live a life after To Catch a Predator, and all these people gotta do, these weirdos on the internet, they just gotta get off if they choose to get off. And I think that's hard for us as people to really accept, because that takes away the power of this whole psychological operation of taking people's lives way too seriously and how we virtue signal. And basically these skeptics of the right-wing libertarian, maybe more rationalistic mindset that was more or less birthed out of the atheist skeptic logic, but now it's the Overton window has switched a little bit, and now the ridicule of the liberal or the woke has basically kind of merged with the LOLcow ridicule and the other eccentric types in the world, and how we ridicule them like the freak show. Now, mind you, I'm not saying we shouldn't do these things. I laugh at Chris Chan and all these other people and the absurdity of themselves, but the way that we get it from people is very disingenuous, and it promotes this level of pseudo authority that you are the vanguard of rationale by not taking yourself too seriously by design, while ridiculing these lower and unfortunate people in society, no matter how funny they are, and putting yourself in the position of, this is stupid, y'all. You're crazy, dude, because this and that, and my society agrees. Ha ha, laugh content creator fans. And they do. I don't know. It's something I was thinking about, y'all. So I won't keep you for any more time. And if you watched till this point, you clearly have found value in what I do. So, if you want to see more content like this, be sure to like and subscribe wherever you are at. You can follow me at lnk.bio/KXNGMAJORA. That is lnk.bio/KXNGMAJORA. Damn, son, I love you, boys and gals, but that's it. So be sure to be on the next lookout for the awesome and awesomer
next video.
Damn, son, where'd you find this? This was based. I love it.